I'm pissed. Yeah, I know. And actually, this is me calmed down a bit. So, a lot of people should be grateful. And first of all, thank you for spending time to click on this video and watch it. That means a lot to me. And I'm pissed. I'm sorry. And guys, I know some people are going to disagree with me here. I know there is. I'm fully aware of that. I'm absolutely aware that that's going to happen. Do it. Go into the comment section and put up a well-formatted debate. Don't just say, oh, you're a hater, you're a faggot, you're a this, you're a that. Don't do that, because we're far too mature for this. I've talked to you guys, to people in the comments several times, and I know the potential of the mature audiences and the mature people who rebuttal against what I say. And for those of you all who are mature, I congratulate you. Thanks for your level of maturity and intelligence. That's what I respect on this channel, and that's why my subscribers are very valued, because they do see that that sometimes they may not always agree with me, and I may not always agree with them, but at least we have a mature mindset. And some people are saying, you're looking too much into a kid's show. First of all, this isn't a kid's show. Dragon Ball originally started its debut as an anime for teenagers, and it was much more bloodier, gorier, and more violent, but then it dumbed itself down in order to appeal to a much larger demographic, which is the children. That's why we saw the reduction of blood. The infamous Makankosen post scene with Goku and Raditz ended up becoming just like Goku and Raditz having an ambiguous black hole in their bodies instead of the blood that used to splat out. You know, things like that. Like, quality went down for the sake of appealing to teenagers and children, because it made more money, unfortunately. Like, as much as I love Dragon Ball, I hate that it gives into the social popularity. And that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. Let's get straight to the point here. The rant/review, Dragon Ball Super episode 67. With new hope, in our hearts, farewell Trunks. Oh boy, I gotta say, this is bad. Like, it's a mess. It's the biggest mess. I said that episode 66 was a mess. And then I said, I think the episode before that was a mess. Ever since, like, 64? I want to say ever since around episode 63-ish to 64, it's just been messy. It's been a mess. Well, 63 onwards, it's just been a mess. It's just been a huge, they wrote themselves into a corner, the storyline is getting crazy mess. And this is the ending result of that mess. The episode begins with right where the last one left off. Trunks, with no explanation or reason or of why, was able to defeat Zamasu by cutting him in half with his spirit bomb sword that he gathered from the, 15 people on Earth, and a little bit of Goku and Vegeta's energy. Moving on, after that, Goku even states, hey, this looks a lot like my Genki Dama, aka the Spirit Bomb. He's like, it looks a lot like that. And that was a big screw you to the audience members, because a lot of people that's not giving us an explanation for what happened. If Trunks could always do this, why didn't he? What, would it have not been enough to defeat Black? During the very beginning? There were more people that existed at the start of this saga than the end. And just, so, moving on, once that happened, they did at least answer my question of what happens, because I refuse to believe that that's just the end of merged Zamasu, because half of him was immortal. However, that immortal half merged with the mortal half that was Goku Black, and it felt like, okay, so what they did, they took the spirit. The spirit was the thing that was immortal, because normally if you kill somebody, not only does their body die, their spirit leaves their body, and it moves on into the afterworld or the next dimension or whatever you have you. However, since Zamasu is immortal, his spirit remains on Earth. And he was able to literally take control of the fathoms of the entire universe. Like, he could take over all of Trunks' universe and bend it under his will. So I'm glad that they kinda explained it, but it's still chaotic. And what ends up happening, Goku and Vegeta try to stop it, and they go Super Saiyan Blue, and then immediately transform back in a normal state. And the reason for this being is because Vegito, and I hate that they marketed this so much, they said it must be because of Vegito's final Kamehameha that they're not able to maintain the power. First of all, why is it that Vegito's final Kamehameha specifically was the move that drained him too much? Just him being in the form should have been enough. And two, like, it's off. So they're unable to turn Super Saiyan Blue. However, Trunks is still able to transform into a Super Saiyan Deus form, which is dumb. He literally spent all of his energy fighting Zamasu. He should be more tired than Goku and Vegeta. He should be worn the fuck out. And yes, there's gonna be cussing. I'm sorry. If you have younger audience or children, please have them leave the room. Please don't have them watch this. Or if you're a child, know that you're not supposed to use this language colorfully outside of your jurisdiction until you've reached a certain age. Anyway, back to the point. Trunks should be more worn out than Vegeta and Goku, but for some reason, they just want to play favoritisms and make Trunks still fight. I don't know. It doesn't matter. They can't do anything to this anyway because he literally has taken over the whole universe. Yeah, he won. In a sense, Zamasu freaking won. He took over everything. So, Goku tries to get a Senzu Bean in order to recover. They're out of Senzu Beans, but Goku does end up finding the Omni King's button, the Zeno button. And this was looming over the entire saga, and I was hoping Goku just wouldn't use it for the entirety of the saga, but obviously he was going to use it at some point, and I felt that this probably was the best point to use it. Unfortunately, at the same time, this also meant that they were going to have to use it, which means they literally had to call upon the god of everything in order to solve their problems, which part of me knew that this was the thing, but part of me was so immersed into the actions around episode 50, around the 50s, that I didn't care. At least at that point I didn't care because Goku dismissed it and so did I. At this point, because of all of that though, when they press the button, the Omni King comes out, and the Omni King Goku's like, yo, this place looks annoying, and Omni King's like, you're right, it does look annoying, let's wipe all of it out. So he blows up the entire timeline, like the entire universe. The whole universe does not exist anymore. It's just an empty void of just nothing. But Goku and the last remaining people, which is Mai, Bulma, and the others, they all retreat to Goku's present timeline. When they retreat to that timeline, they go right back in the damn time machine, grab the Omni King from Goku's timeline, bring him in, and then bring him to meet with the future timeline Omni King. So now, that's right, our present timeline, the main timeline, the timeline we're following now, has two gods of the universe. What the fuck? That makes no damn sense. Now, Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z and the other, they've played with the concept of God a lot to the point where they've reduced King Kai's ranking to the point where Kami doesn't even mean much. Kami's just the guardian of Earth, which is overwatched by King Kai, the guardian of his entire quadrant, which is oversaw by Supreme Kai, the Supreme Kais, which are the guardians of that quadrant, which is overseen by Whis and Vados and all of the higher ups. And also the Omni Kings, I guess you could say guardian or watcher over or whatever. He is Whis' father. So the sage or whatever his name is, he's Whis' father. He's Whis and Vados' father. Kind of cool. I like the idea. Anyway, so after that point, there's two Omni Kings, and because of this, Omni King has someone to play with. Zeno has someone to play with, and it's future Zeno. And the two get along great, so that whole ordeal is solved. Alright. Which is sad, because that plot hole made is more acceptable than the shit I'm about to get into. Okay, after the post-battle dinner that they always have in Dragon Ball Super now, they try to go over what to do next and where's Trunks and Mai gonna end up. Now, logically, Trunks and Mai should just sort of stay in this timeline, but distance themselves. Go the Android 17 route and just leave. Like, be in this timeline, but leave. 17 is still in this timeline. He's a park ranger. He's just not active in battles anymore. So, Trunks and Mai should just leave. Now, the idea, I guess, was to get Trunks to a place where he and Mai will never have to fight ever again, which is the hope for all of the Z Warriors, ideally, is that they shouldn't have to really fight again, because the whole point is for them to be at peace, which is the thing that Trunks ran into with the Gohan episode. What's their solution? Well, after destroying future Trunks' History of Trunks timeline, which I'm going to get into that later, Trunks and Mai decide to go to a time in which before all of this Zamasu and Black stuff took place. So before Beerus killed Zamasu and the whole everything just went out of whack. So before this saga basically happened. The risk, there is a future Trunks and a Mai in that timeline that are currently alive. So there will be two Trunkses in that timeline. Now, there's two Trunkses and two Mai's in this timeline. However, the thing about it is, there is a complete difference. There's a completely different outcome because Trunks has had a different upbringing due to the fact that there is no androids in him. Well, there's no cell in his timeline, at least. There's no cell in his timeline, and Android 17 and 18 have been converted to good guys now. They're not bad guys. They're not terrorizing this timeline like they were in the other one. So Trunks had a different upbringing. So it's clear that there are two different Trunkses, one vastly younger than the other. And so it fits more in this one. And Mai got her age reduced thanks to the whole Battle of Gods fiasco. So there's two different results as to what happened here, which makes it far more acceptable than what happens if they go to a timeline where there's clearly two Trunkses. It's just one's vastly weaker because he didn't get angry enough or whatever. So, regardless, Trunks and Mai end up deciding, fuck it, we'll go to the timeline that has the problems in it. And they will, the obvious, like, hey, there's another pair of us in it. So they leave and they have all this, goodbye, we'll never forget you. And I actually did like the fact that Vegeta tried to punch Trunks and Trunks caught it. Like, I thought that was a pretty cool moment. Unfortunately, there's so much muck up. And I will be explaining most of my problems in my Saga review. So if you're expecting this rant to be way longer than what it says on the bottom, don't. I have rants with this episode which expand off into the entire saga, which is why I'm glad that I waited to do this review, because I was actually so mad that I couldn't think straight because of this episode, which is why this review is dangerously late. And so, long story short, after all of that settled and done, Trunks and Mai go off, and that's the end we see of them for good. I am pissed. It's one thing if you muck up something within the confines of Dragon Ball Super, but when you fuck with Dragon Ball Z, that's when it gets personal. The reason it gets personal is because a lot of people, and I've been hearing this a lot, and Geekdom asked this question, great guy, great Dragon Ball Z reviewer, or Dragon Ball reviewer in general, great Dragon Ball tuber. I think the other Dragon Ball tubers also did this well, but Geekdom begged this question around the time before this episode I think even happened. Is it okay to compare Dragon Ball Z to Dragon Ball Super? Yes, it is. The reason, because Dragon Ball Super wouldn't exist without Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is the source in which Dragon Ball Super gets any of its content. The only thing I've seen in Dragon Ball Super that has been original to its own is the Battle of God Saga and the Universe 6 Saga. Those are the only two sagas that I can safely say have had their own continuities, and even still they borrow things from Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z's timeline is so close to Dragon Ball Super's, you can't even make the Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z excuse, where Dragon Ball was more comedy oriented and Dragon Ball Z was more action oriented. And then look at the end of Dragon Ball, the final tournament that Goku is in. Doesn't it seem like it's making a smooth transition from Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z? As you can watch Dragon Ball, the tone progressively got darker and darker and darker, which led to Dragon Ball Z. So the two fit perfectly. Dragon Ball Super fits perfectly with Dragon Ball Z, unfortunately, because it does connect plot-wise and carries on the same tone as Dragon Ball Z. Unfortunately, Dragon Ball Super takes steps backwards. And honestly, I think bringing Trunks back was a step backwards. I held my tongue for this entire saga, and when I do my saga review, I will go into full detail of what I'm talking about. But I have to say, for this episode, a lot of ass pulls were pulled. A lot of ass pulls. Omni King destroying an entire universe is an ass pull. It was just an ass pull that was brought up earlier, so it can make sense for later, for when they write themselves in a corner. It was literally a play it safe button for when things got way too out of hand, which it did. Trunks got away with too much shit, and I do not excuse my French. He got away with way too much shit. And the solution was bad. If you ever want to know what I'm talking about, watch History of Trunks and then watch the final episode of the Android Saga. How to create a prologue and an epilogue done correctly. This was not correct. This was a failure. The only good part about this was Gowasu saying that this was his sin to burden, this was his sin to carry. Him and Zamasu's communication and how all of this unraveled and unfolded was probably the best part the saga had to offer, and the soundtrack. Oh, and a little bit of the action and animation. But the storytelling, you cannot fuck up the storytelling and glitter it all over with great spectacles, musics, and action and say, there you go, that's a saga. That is unexcusable. Dragon Ball Z was able to measure all of this out, and I am not wearing fucking nostalgia goggles for anyone who wants to say that. Why? Because I watched the Dragon Ball Z series several times, and I can definitely say, for my favorite anime, that the Android Saga is a saga I watch the most. To be perfectly honest, I can watch the Android Saga by itself and explain in full detail why it is the reason I love Dragon Ball Z so much, and it also explains why Super messed up so much here. They were explaining in the dinner scene, they were explaining all of the plot holes that they were opening up by doing this. And yes, I do believe that Vegeta, Goku, and the others have been relying on Beerus and the others too much. They even point that out in the episode. And they still consisted on doing it. Whis had the solution to literally everything in an urn in order to solve their problems. And that was a big fuck you to the audience, because they flubbed up so much on this episode, on the saga, when it came to solutions. They had the fusion, fucked it up. They had the Mafuba, fucked it up. Why? Because they wanted it to go longer, and they needed a reason to write themselves even further into a corner. And I do not accept that. This episode was bad. It had some good moments, though. I will admit that. So, the next time we meet, it'll be the whole slice of life episodes, and I actually like those. So, see you all then, everybody. Tyrone the God 3 out.